The song remains the same. Not necessarily. But the address, if I can at all help it, does remain the same. And there it is, TPOS, baby, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470, U.S. of A. Presented to you in glorious, there's the focus. I can still never figure out when the focus is actually going to work on my infamous yet renowned cheap internet camera. TPOS, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. That's me, Malcolm Tent. My address on a genuine postcard that was sent to me by my pal Dylan Hauser from Orlando, Florida. Dylan of Hell Garbage. Great noise band. Oh, look how out of focus I am now. Come on, cheap camera, get with it. Thank you. I need all the help I can get when it comes to looking good. So the camera's got to cooperate here. Matt, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the share. I really do appreciate it. I don't mean Sonny and share. I mean thank you for sharing my event tonight. Nice to have you on board. Nice to have postcards from Dylan of Hell Garbage. I send Dylan postcards in return, along with the occasional cassette, because that's the way I like to do it. I love doing mail exchanges. That's why I go through so much effort to put my address in every single episode of Tent Talks Tunes, because happiness is a full mailbox. It applies to me. It probably applies to you. So let's get some stuff going, man. Let's trade. Let's swap. Here's something I got in the mail besides this great postcard from Dylan Hauser of Hell Garbage. There's his art. I guess it's a QC code. I still don't know how these things work. I'm not in any particular rush to try. Once I do finally master the QC code, I'm going to go back and look at every single one of these postcards from Dylan using the lens, the jaundiced eye of the QC reader, whatever the hell that is. Hello, Pear. Welcome aboard, sir. Glad to have you here. Murray, from the blazing hot yet very dry city of Tucson, Arizona, is tuned in. Murray, is Ray still in Facebook jail? If she is, tell her I said hi. Hope you get out soon. If not, welcome aboard. Come on in, everybody. I'm showing off some of the great stuff I got in the mail this past week. My main dog, Jason, from Texas. Because of Jason, I now know what purple drank is. I never knew that such a thing as purple drank even existed. But now I know more about purple drank, DJ Screw, Big Mo, Texas rap, and hip hop than I ever would have thought was even possible. So Jason, thank you for the knowledge, and thank you for sending me this very excellent, most excellent sleeve of genuine Chi-Chi Rodriguez golf balls. From sometime in the 1970s, baby. Red, white, and blue packaging. That's earth tones all the way. There's Chi-Chi on the side, man. Check it out, man. Solid state golf balls. Not only did Jason send me these great Chi-Chi Rodriguez golf balls, he sent me a genuine artifact, according to this card here, which is very carefully slabbed and preserved. According to this card, this is a genuine Chi-Chi artifact. I think it says artifact. That is the actual word they use. Can't read it because my glasses aren't strong enough anymore. But this does contain a piece of something that Chi-Chi used in a genuine tournament game. I don't know what it is. It looks like a piece of a headband or a piece of a shirt or something, but it's in there. It's Chi-Chi. It's legit. Thank you, Jason, for that, because that's cool. And of course, the requisite wacky package. We talk about wacky packs a lot here. Greg Crawford, you know what I'm talking about? Are you of this age? Are you of this generation to know what a wacky pack is? Sell them. Don't buy them. Sell them. I love this stuff. I also love the fact that Jason from Texas went through a lot of effort to create a beautiful work of art, to craft a genuinely gorgeous, lovely collage. This is how well Jason from Texas knows me. Take a look at this. Look at the panoramic vista of this. King Curtis. A genuine reproduction ad of a Championship Wrestling from Florida card from 1976. and King Curtis's nemesis, Cyclone Negro. And of course, the headlining match from this card is indeed King Curtis versus Cyclone Negro. This, my friends, is professional wrestling at its very finest. Championship wrestling from Florida, circa 1975. Malcolm Tent, this guy you see sitting here before you on the internet, does not do sports entertainment. I don't do sports entertainment, man. Sports entertainment is for the birds. And for all of you birds out there who grew up on sports entertainment, that's fine. Maybe to you, that's the golden age of wrestling, and I'm not going to poo-poo that. Me, personally, I need people like King Curtis, man. The dude is genuinely hideously ugly. He's legitimately soaked in his own blood. He's got a horrific personality. He does not read from scripts. He never took an acting class. That, my friends, is a true sportsman. King Curtis Ayukia from where? Hawaii. From Hawaii. I was confused because when I saw him as a kid, he was billed as the madman from Singapore. But Hawaii. So thank you, Jason, for that. I've got plenty of mixtapes to send you, featuring lots of purple drank, guzzling rap artists. And if you guys want to do a little trade by mail of your artifacts for mine, here's the address again, TPOS, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. And that's the bulletin board for today. Let's now get down to business, shall we? Let's take a drink. This is not purple. You'll notice this is transparent drink. That's the way an old guy like me in Connecticut does it. So, tonight on Tent Talks Tunes, it's Tales of the Tape. I've talked about my absolute mania for recording bands in the past. If you go to my YouTube channel, the odds are pretty good that you'll see the episode or episodes I've done in the past about recording bands live in the field. So I don't want to really recap too much of that, but I want to relate a little bit of how my technique developed and how it led to some very, very interesting, entertaining, and cool run-ins with awesome bands, starting in 1983 and leading up to the very present day. I was thinking about it because as I was doing the dishes the other day, I had this mad craving to hear Moose. Moose. Not as in Rocky and Bullwinkle, but Moose, the band. And for me, my definitive, all-abiding memory and impression of Moose, the British shoegaze band, the way I know their music is from a recording that I made. And it's right here on this compact disc. Moose at the Flying Squire, Danbury, Connecticut, March 11th, 1994. Re-EQ'd. When I want to hear Moose, this is what I go to. The reason being that in 1994, when Moose came over, and I saw this show, and I completely, utterly fell in love with them, their albums were impossible to find. Could not find a Moose record anywhere. And I got to tell you, I was in the business. I'm still in the business. My business is buying and selling records and CDs and tapes and whatever. Check me out on Discogs. Look up TPOS on Discogs. My business was selling records, and I couldn't find a Moose record for anything. Which is a real good reason that I had this recording. Because if I hadn't recorded this band on that fateful night, I would have had no reason, or no ability, I should say, no way to listen to them again. And the irony is, nowadays, of course, with the dreaded YouTube, where my channel is hosted, you can type in Moose and, you know, their entire discography will come up, and you can hear all the Moose you want. You can go onto Spotify. You know, you can go almost anywhere on the internet. There's probably a Moose website somewhere that's got links to their music. Whatever, it's an easy thing. In 1994, it was not an easy thing. The double irony is, after playing this, while I was washing the dishes and just being transported into Moose heaven, there's a song on here called Uptown Invisible that just, every time I hear it, it's like this body being placed into a giant slingshot and launched into the stratosphere. and just making a few orbits around the planet up there in the ionosphere as well, and never wanting to come down. I was like, wow, you know, what's the album version sound like? What's the studio version sound like compared to my recording of it? So I did indeed go onto YouTube, looked up Moose, Uptown Invisible, and quite honestly was a bit let down because it just did not have the fire, the fury, the grit, and the raw rage of the live version, which would not exist if I had not been at the Flying Squire with my tape recording apparatus in 1994 on the 11th of March. That's why I do it, because I want to relive these great moments. I need to document this stuff. Let's see if anybody here is tuned in right now live. Hello, Cruz down in Florida. Yeah, man. You guys know what I'm talking about. Stephen Smith knows exactly what kind of shirt I'm wearing. I normally don't promote anything other than myself, but as we all know, Devo is kind of a special case. I've got a big dent in my head right here. You can't see it because even with what little hair I have left, it's enough to cover the big dent that Devo has caused in my head. And Devo is the reason why I go through all this trouble to record this stuff. See, it always does get right back to the topic eventually. The reason that I am so completely maniacal and bent on recording every single gig I go to and or play is because of Devo. Jennifer Bartram Schmidt likes my shirt, and I like Jennifer Bartram Schmidt. She's the story. I see that Tommy wants to hear a story about my Anthrax recording. We might get to that later. Jennifer Bartram Schmidt is the singer. Well, she's a singer. She's great. She's wonderful. Love her. Glad you're here. Devo was the first concert I ever saw at the tender age of 14. Or was it 15? It was 15. I was 15 years old when I saw Devo for the first time. My first ever concert. And when it was over, I just wanted to remember every second of it. I wanted to remember every moment of it. I wanted to remember every detail of it. I wanted to remember every song they played. I wanted to remember exactly what they looked like. I wanted to remember what the room looked like, what the people in the crowd looked like. I wanted to relive it forever because it was something. To say that it left an impression on me would be like saying that a die at the Philadelphia Mint left an impression on a planchet and then spit it out into the hopper. Yes, it marked me for life. So I'd spent days and days afterwards just furiously trying to record and trying to remember every detail of the concert. And that's just kind of where it stayed for quite a while because I was 15 years old. I'm in Florida. I'm young. I'm naive. Technology was wherever it was in 1980. Communications was wherever it was in 1980. It wasn't anything like what we've got now. So I'd gone to see a few concerts in the years after that. I saw Devo again in 1981, saw the Pretenders in 1981, Pretenders in 1984. Excuse me. Started going to see local bands and local concerts and began playing in bands and promoting shows. And by playing in bands, I started hanging around people who knew stuff about recording and knew things about gear and knew what the latest technology was. And it slowly was brought to my attention and put into my still very limited worldview that I could do this. It's possible. It is possible. I can do it. I can do it. I'm pretty sure that the first dude who sort of clued me into this kind of stuff was Santo, Big Caesar Santo, the lead singer for my punk rock band Broken Talent in Florida in 1983, 84, probably around 1984. One day we were at rehearsal at this place called Natural Sound Studios in Hialeah, which was kind of a rare thing because we were broke and we couldn't afford to pay for a rehearsal studio. And, it was a really rare thing. Santos showed up to rehearsal with this object under his arms. Not this one exactly, but something like this. He had a cassette deck. He had a big old bulky cassette deck that had a couple of microphone inputs, and, big long power cord. You had to plug it into the wall. So he brought this thing in and he sat it down on a table and he plugged it in and he stuck a couple of microphones into the microphone inputs of this thing, and he aimed one at the PA system that was there, and he aimed the other one in the general direction of where the band was. And he explained to me, and I never put two and two together, man. This is how young and naive I was. Even though I'd been playing in bands for a while at this point, he explained to me the PA, that's where the vocals come from, and sometimes the drums. The rest of the sound comes from over there, the guitar and the bass, and definitely the drums. So if you point a microphone at the PA, you get the vocals. You point a microphone at the band, you get the band. And that way, you record your own band. Caramba! How could I have not put those pieces together? It was so simple, so elementary, my dear. So basic and fundamental. But it took someone to show me how to do it. Once I saw that, I felt unstoppable. And so I went right to it. Excuse me. Lots of pollen in the air in Danbury. It's a good thing because that means there's lots of trees and plants and flowers and blooms and blossoms. It's very nice. But boy, did that stuff coagulate in my larynx. My goodness. Who's watching? Jay Gray says, hold on, I am listening to Slayer. Okay, you've stopped the Slayer. Good. You definitely got to pay more attention to me than Slayer. Slayer doesn't need any help. I need all the help I can get. As you can see by my great camera work here. Oy vey. Anyway, yes, Jason, you know what I'm talking about. Don, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Now, in previous episodes of Tent Talks Tunes, I talked about my travails in attempting to record bands in big venues, like the Hollywood Sportatorium, the Sunrise Music Theater, the Guzman Cultural Center, bands with bouncers, security, tickets, ushers, assigned seatings. And some of those stories are really, really funny because there are busts involved. However, I was now involved in an entirely different universe, the universe of punk rock and of independent venues, where there really weren't, if there were bouncers, they more or less probably didn't care if you walked into a place like Flynn's Ocean 71 with one of these things, especially if your band was on the bill. Let's say the bouncer's like, hey, what are you doing with that thing? I'm like, I'm recording my band. Okay, go right ahead, sonny boy. No problem. And so while I'm recording my band, I'm going to record every other band on the bill. Let's get my framing here, dude. My framing. As said before, I need all the help I can get. I'm going to help myself. So the fact that you could do that in a punk rock venue was revelatory. And so that was pretty cool. The thing that really made it amazing was the sound man at Flynn's Ocean 71, a guy named Steve Funky. And Steve, I know you're on Facebook. If you're out there and you see this, hello, I salute you, sir. Steve was a really cool guy. Top shelf, world-class sound man. And he would work the gigs at Flynn's, including some local, local shows. And so I remember going to Flynn's one time with my giant-sized home cassette deck with the microphone inputs and a couple of Radio Shack highball mics. And I don't remember if I asked him or if he just said, hey, kid, if you want to record that right, put the tape deck here back by the soundboard because all the sound is aimed in this direction. When I'm mixing the sound, it's going to sound best right here. So if you want to record, set everything up here. Nice. Thank you. And here's something else too, man. If you want, I'll let you run a line off the soundboard. I wasn't quite sure exactly what that meant. But once again, he explained it to me. Every instrument on stage had a microphone in front of it. The drums had microphones all over them. The singer is singing into a microphone. And all of that sound, literally, that sound went through the mixing board. Everything. And if you wanted to get what it was, you wanted to hear that and tape it, all you had to do was take a little plug and stick it into a jack on the back of the soundboard, run it into your cassette deck, and you could record that signal as it came directly from the stage to the sound system. And he told me that that was good. I mean, like, my head's already spinning with this revelation. Like, I just can't believe what I'm hearing. I could not believe that such a thing was possible. He said, not only that, but if you want to get the best recording possible, run one line into one channel of the cassette deck off the board and take your microphone and aim it at the stage and plug it into the other channel. That way, whatever's missed, if anything is missed or mixed strangely coming off of the stage, you can get it from the air. And you listen to them simultaneously, and at least in theory, you get the whole picture. Steve Funky, here we are, 37 years later, and I bow down before you for this very simple and extremely effective words of advice and audio wisdom that you gifted me at Flynn's in 1984. Because that's the basic formula. That's how you preserve the sound. You don't rely on either the soundboard or the air. You use them both. Whoa. So pretty much from that moment on, I was unstoppable. And I'm looking through some of the Malcolm 10 archive, and this also addresses a question that somebody asked me the other night. I played a gig at a really cool venue called The Cellar in Hamden, Connecticut, with some really awesome bands, including one called Flight of Silence, who I really dug. Chaser 8, really dug them. We were talking, and I was talking about, you know, what I'm talking about now, and the question came up, so what do you do with all those recordings that you make? I told him the truth. I take the recordings, I put them onto, these days, CDs, and I take the CDs and I put them in boxes. Here's one box. One box of CDs of bands that I've recorded. They're in chronological order. This is actually a box that goes from October 26th, 2013 to June 10th, 2017. And the last show is from the Shuffle Fest in Bath, New Hampshire, featuring Thursday Tories, Time Out Timmy, USA Waste, and Voices in Vain. That's punk rock, baby, from New Hampshire and Vermont. The first one, Brainwave Bionic at the Trash Bar in Brooklyn from November 11th, 2013, and a group called Pluto Moons from the same venue in the same night. Ironic, I don't remember either of these bands. I don't remember either one of them, but I was there. I can prove it. I was there. And if I get the wild whim to listen to it, I can hear them and say, oh yeah, those guys, right. Ultrabunny played with them and they were great. I remember now. Otherwise, they'd be lost forever. Lost forever. And I cannot stand the idea of this music being lost forever. I hate the thought of this really awesome band or really awesome individual with a guitar or whatever playing this music in a completely unique live situation that's never going to be duplicated ever again, that cannot be replicated, and just having that music go off into the ether to dissipate and vanish, never to be heard again. The very thought of it makes me lose sleep at night. So that's why I lug all this stuff around to document it, because I love it, it's history, it's important, and it needs to be relived and enjoyed. In my car right now, there are a bunch of CDs that I've recorded live in the field on what I affectionately call the MT field unit. So I started out at Flynn's, and here's a couple. These are a couple of the very first shows I ever recorded at Flynn's using the Steve Funky method. And I can tell you right now, That two of the dates were November 3rd, 1984, a band called Amazing Grace, and then November 30th, 1984, The Chant. Great bands from South Florida. And especially in the case of Amazing Grace, woefully underdocumented. Amazing Grace had an LP, and they had a demo, and maybe some other stuff, but it never really made it out of South Florida. The Chant put out several albums. They relocated to Atlanta and are more or less active to this very day, but nobody really knows about them outside of the South Florida or the Southeast in general. So I got this stuff, man. I got it. I can play these bands anytime I want and be immediately transported back to Flynn's in 1984, which is a magic time and a magic place. And I'm going to stress right now that I do not believe in the good old days. I believe in the good days of right here, right now. The old days were good. What's going on right now is also good. It's all good. This is not a nostalgia trip. This is history. And there's a very important distinction between the two. So a toast, using some of this transparent drink, Jason, to history. Another critical recording moment in my long storied career also occurred at Flynn's. This is one of the several times that Black Flag played at Flynn's. This is October 31st, 1984, Halloween night. And it was a scenario that I talked about a second ago. I walked into the Black Flag show, Halloween night, 1984, with my giant home cassette deck and a couple of mics, and went back to what was now a semi-regular haunt back by the soundboard and plugged everything in, and nobody said a word because I was on the bill that night. I was doing a poetry reading, opening for Black Flag. So, whatever, this poet kid's going to record his set. Plugged into the board, aimed the mic at the stage, and let it rip. I learned a very important lesson that night. Very, very, very important lesson. Actually, two important lessons. One, if you're going to read poetry opening for Black Flag, the audience is probably going to give you a very hard time. A very hard time. A scrawny young poet opening for Black Flag, you can imagine how that went. It was actually pretty cool because the audience was chanting haircut, 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 because I had very long hair at the time. And I was able to do my poetry, my spoken word thing in rhythm with them, and then do a stage dive off of the stage and be carried around to the back of the room. Whatever. That was lesson number one. Lesson number two is when you go back to the soundboard, do not, repeat, do not ask permission to tape Black Flag. Because Dave O'Clawson, their sound man, who is a top shelf sound man and actually a very nice guy, really cool dude. I said, hey, can I tape Black Flag? He said, no, the band doesn't like people taping stuff off the board. You can use this jam box that we bring with us if you want to tape them on that. That's cool, but you can't plug into the board. I, of course, was very crestfallen. If I hadn't asked, I could have just gone ahead and done it. As it was, it took me almost the entire set before I twigged the thought that, wait a minute, he said I could use that jam box and record it. So they were already into the last song of the set and getting ready to do the encores before it finally occurred to me to pop the cassette into their jam box and record whatever I could. I had to take a tape out of there to do it, to put my cassette in there, but I did it. I captured the last half of the last song, and then the entire, what is apparently now infamous, Henry drinking his sock juice out of a cup incident, which I guess he did a very long spiel about on some show recently. It's right here, kids. Started out on a cassette. It is now on this here CD, along with some of my other Black Flag experiences. The fragment of the Halloween show, the sound check from their show the next year at Fireman's Hall, and a recording that somebody else made of their gig at Finder's Lounge in '82, the first time I ever saw them. So, great story. They were awesome. Henry drank the sock juice. You could at least hear what it sounded like on this. This is why you record these things. It's important. You can't let the sounds of Henry drinking that foul gray liquid out of a plastic cup be lost forever. We know what happened. We can relive the joy of it. It's right there, baby. What else do we got here? Oh, we got historical moments. Very historical moments. Oh, we got a lot of people talking here, yeah. Mr. Knapp, William Michael Knapp, who ran sound at the Anthrax for many years. Mr. Knapp is actually directly responsible for the creation of the MT field unit. Directly responsible for it. But that's another story for another day. Mr. Knapp wants to know if I got any Morbid Opera. Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And I was actually going to grab a Morbid Opera CD that I recorded for AV purposes, but I kind of forgot it. Whatever. But yes, got some Morbid Opera. I also have this. Morbid Opera could have been on this one right here. Check out this CD backup of my original cassette. The MT Field Unit, Churchill's Hideaway in Miami, Florida, April 25th, 1986. The first ever night of live music at Churchill's. Featuring the Prom Sluts, No Talent, SLA, and a guy named Hugh. Look at how lousy my handwriting is, made worse by the fact that my pen died in mid-word. First night ever of live music at Churchill's. Wow. Churchill's is still doing music now, 35 years later. This was the first. From such humble beginnings, the Prom Sluts, SLA, Hugh, and No Talent, which was supposed to be Broken Talent, my band. Supposed to be Broken Talent, but in typical fashion, we broke up a week before the gig. But I was there, and I forget who else was there. We did this sort of kind of semi, not even half-assed, kind of like quarter-assed version of Broken Talent. And it exists, baby. It exists. All because I'm either durable or dumb enough to lug one of these things around to concerts and stick microphones into the jack and aim the mics at the bands and plug a line into the board and record the stuff. Oh my God. Don wants to know if I brought chicken wire like the Blues Brothers. I probably should have on any number of occasions. God knows. And Mr. Knapp wants to know, do I have any Broken Talent? Yeah, I do, but most of it's not worth listening to. Sorry. I'm sort of hopscotching all over the map. Got some very fond memories of these shows from 1992. Sorry, 1994. What the fuck year is it? 92 and 94. Why not? 1992, I did something extremely rare. I did a weird thing. I took some time off from running my record store, Trash American style, in Danbury, Connecticut. Running your own record store is a total existence. I always called it TTE, total trash existence. It meant that I was in the groove, on the beam, on the job, 25 hours a day, 9 days a week. It's the way it's got to be when you're running your own business, especially a record store, and you're catering to people who love music and have specific demands. You've got to be on at all times. In the summer of 1992, I don't know why I did it. I didn't really take time off that often, but summer of 1992, I took some time off to visit some friends of mine who lived in New Orleans. I'd never been there before. Thought it'd be cool to go down there, of course, in the middle of summer and visit New Orleans, where the humidity is about 285%, and it's really hot, and there are alligators and snakes and water moccasins and whiptail scorpions. Sure, why not? Let's go to New Orleans in the middle of the summer. That's where I fell in love with New Orleans, man. My second favorite city on earth is New Orleans. I love New Orleans. It's because of that trip I went down there. Oddly enough, my route down from Connecticut to New Orleans roughly coincided with the tour itinerary of a group called the Nova Mob. The Nova Mob. I hope at least some of you people know who the Nova Mob are. Since we're here right now live, I'm going to take 1 second and I'm going to sit back. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to see if people there know who the Nova Mob are. Who out there knows who the Nova Mob is? And people who are watching this episode archived on my YouTube channel, or who are watching it after the fact on Facebook, just consider this to be video verate. This is the excitement of the moment. This is what happens when you do a live. I think they call it vlog now. Stephen Smith, he knows who the Nova Mob are. Yes, indeed he do. Mr. Smith has chimed in and spilled the beans. The Nova Mob was the band that Grant Hart was in after Husker Du. And Mr. Knapp wants to know what's the woodpecker sound. I have no idea. This camera makes a really strange knocking noise. I've put it out to the internet. I've asked if anybody knows why it does that. I don't know. Nobody seems to know. I don't know. Hopefully it's not too obnoxious. Sorry. I've tried hitting it. I've tried scrubbing it. I've tried soaking it. And I still get a woodpecker sound. Learn to love it. It's video verate. Anyway, Husker Du, one of my top 3 favorite bands of all time. Grant Hart, my favorite songwriter in Husker Du. And their tour roughly coincides with my vacation schedule. Hot dog and hot damn. So I caught up with them for the first night that I was able to in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They played a gig on a Saturday night. It was May 16th, 1992. And I guess Baton Rouge is a big college town because there was nobody there. Nobody there at the Nova Mob gig in Baton Rouge. Nobody except me, the 2 friends I brought with me, a couple of dudes who showed up just because they liked the name of the band. They were William S. Burroughs fans. So they came because they liked the name Nova Mob. Didn't know anything about the music. And I guess there might have been a couple of other people there. But basically it was the Nova Mob in an empty room. And I, at a duty-free shop in New Orleans, had invested in my first ever portable Walkman-style cassette recorder. Because that really opens up some possibilities. As Mr. Knapp said earlier, when it comes to recording, and I will quote you exactly, permitted unless forbidden. Fair enough. As we said earlier, I've got a big dent in my head, and I hate to be refused. So when you've got a device like this, and this is only an approximation, a cassette recorder, a pocket recorder, here's why they call it a pocket recorder. You take the button off of your pocket, you open it up a little bit, God willing, and the creaks don't rise. I know I can do this. I'm a very smart guy. Everybody always told me, Tent, you're a smart guy. I just proved it. You unbutton the pocket, you stick the recorder in it, unless the pocket's too damn small, and hi guys, I'm here to see the show. Is it recording? Is it recording? Is it recording? You know, pocket recorder. I bought one of these at a duty-free shop in New Orleans, and it was a piece of junk. It was garbage. And these built-in microphones, I think it was just for speech recording because everything that I ever tried to record with it came out distorted. Including that night in Baton Rouge, Louisiana with the Nova Mob playing to an empty room. Fug! Drives me nuts, even just thinking about it. But I remember very clearly after the show, since there was really nobody there, it was very easy to go up and say, "Hi, Nova Mob. Big fan of yours. Pleased to meet you." I actually spent some nice quality time hanging out with Grant and the guys in the band that night. It was really cool. It was very intimate, very friendly. After the show, I remember going back to the board, and the sound man and the guys in Run Westy Run, who were on tour with them were listening through a set of headphones to the soundboard cassette recording of the gig. And I was just like, you know, drooling, jonesing, quivering. I wanted that soundboard tape. I wanted it. Because from whatever leakage I could hear coming through the headphones a couple of feet away, it sounded good. It sounded well mixed, well balanced, bright and clear. I wanted that recording. Well, shiver me timbers if somehow, I don't know who, why, how, what, but a bunch of years later, that recording started to circulate. The soundboard recording that I heard that night at the nightclub in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It started circulating. Somebody made a copy, and they told two friends, and they told two friends, and so on and so on. And eventually, through a hugely unfathomable circuitous route, I got it, baby. I got it. So I didn't record it, but I got the one that I wanted. Pretty cool. And this is a great recording. I could listen to this any moment of any day and get and I don't mean this in a mean-spirited way. I wasn't even thinking about it when I was going to say it, but now that I've wound you up this much, I have to go ahead and say it. Whenever I need my fix of Grant Hart, I can put this on and go straight back to that extremely hot, sticky, sultry night in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with nobody there but pure magic coming off the stage. I ended up following the Nova Mob from Baton Rouge to Atlanta, and then up the coast again. I caught them in Port Chester, New York, New Haven, Connecticut, and Hoboken, New Jersey, all on the same run. And it was really awesome to follow them around because they were one of those bands who never plays the same set twice. Every night was different. Like, they had their core set, but they mixed it up every single night. And you never knew what songs they were going to jam on, what songs they were just going to play straight forward. Is Grant in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? Like, all these things would affect the show. And truthfully, out of the entire run of shows, the best one of the whole run was this one right here, baby. The Rock Bar in New Haven, Connecticut, June 4th, 1992. This was the best show of the whole run. The Rock Bar is what it was called before Fernando Pinto took it over and turned it into the Tune In. I think Fernando was booking at the Rock Bar at the time, but he hadn't transformed it yet into an all-ages venue. So the Nova Mob played the Rock Bar in New Haven. It was a great night. Grant was in really good spirits. Mark Reddish on the drums, Tom Merkel on the bass, and they were just firing on every single cylinder. And they were awesome. And I had, as usual, I love dragging this thing out because it's such a ridiculous prop. I mean, just the idea of hauling one of these things around at gigs, you know, it's awesome. It weighs about 25 pounds. It doesn't have a handle on it. It's not meant to go to concerts. It's meant to sit on your home console. I dragged this thing around all over the damn place, and Grant was very friendly to the tapers. So by this point, I had refined my technique to where if I couldn't get to the soundboard, I would take one mic and aim it squarely at the house main PA. Let's pretend that's the PA. One mic squarely at the PA using the Big Santo method, and then two mics, one on stage left, one on stage right. And I had this little Radio Shack 4-channel mic mixer, which I would sit on top of the cassette deck. I'd run the PA microphone into one channel and the stage mics into the other two channels, and I would mix them visually. There was no other way to mix the audio because, you know, you're in a club in a live situation. It's so loud that even if I had headphones, there was no way I could possibly hear what I was actually doing. So I'd mix everything visually using the sliders on the mixer, and I would look at the VU meters. I would run one channel up until the VU meter just hit the red, and then run it down again, run the second one up until the VU meter again was just hitting the red, leave that one there, and then slowly run the other one up to the level where it was when it was hitting the red. Purely visual. And I'd say about 8.5 times out of 10, it worked beautifully. You know, I actually was able to get everything I needed. And so that's how I recorded the Nova Mob that night, and also in Port Chester, and also in Hoboken. And it's just one of those cherished moments, you know, one of those things that you just can't duplicate anywhere else, because it's not going to happen in any other circumstance. At one point during the recording, Grant leans into one of my microphones and says, "Hello, Malcolm. This is a bootleg, bootleg, bootleg." And Tom Merkel makes a wisecrack in the background. And it's just, you know, that's service. That is service above and beyond the call of duty. It's one reason why I loved Grant so much, man. He was a great, fun guy. And it's documented. It's right there, baby. Documented. Boy, let's see. Oh, we got all kinds of smart-ass remarks going on here. Yeah, a little too much dialogue for me to keep track of. I'm going to visit you guys afterwards, and we're going to banter back and forth a little bit. Another Nova Mob show from '94, and I'm not going to belabor this one too much, recorded off the board to augment the air recording I made, was a gig where they drove all the way from Minneapolis to New York City to play a showcase gig at CBGB, June 24th, 1994. Drove back to Minneapolis, and then, well, they didn't quite break up, but the drummer quit, and Grant switched from guitar to drums. And I believe, I don't know if this is the only show they ever played with this lineup, but it's the only show they played on that tour with this lineup. And that's why you got to show up to the gig with a recorder. Otherwise, nobody would know. We're going to fast forward a bit. I've got one more disc. I could literally go on for days about this. You saw the size of that box I was waving around. I've got 2 more like that. And then I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of cassettes that I haven't digitized yet. All of them recorded by myself. So yeah, I could do this for days, but I'm going to wrap up with one more. Hello, Nathan Trusty. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you here. To somewhat more recent, and this is another reason why I record all these bands. By now, this is a disc from 2014, about 7 years ago. By now, the technology has been streamlined quite a bit. And I have this thing, which I used before as a representative of a pocket cassette recorder. This is a pocket digital recorder. It's got 2 built-in microphones. And it's got input jacks for external mics. Excuse me. So I can do the exact same thing that I did with the old home cassette deck. I can plug a microphone into it, aim it at the house mains, and then place this one on the stage or very close to the stage, and aim it and take a second mic and plug it in and put it somewhere else on the stage and get a fantastic stereo image. And this is a lot less bulky and a lot less cumbersome than the old home cassette deck, and it makes a damn good recording. So I haul that around whenever I go on tour, and I try to play 60 shows a year minimum. That's my benchmark. 60, not 15, 16, 17, but 59, 60, 61. That's my goal whenever I'm able to. And I record every single band on those 60 nights, including myself. And the reason why I do it is because of what's contained on this disc right here. What's on this disc? I'll share it with you guys. MT Field Unit, Peter Stubb at Mayfield's All Killer in Chattanooga, Tennessee on October 12th, 2014. And then the next night, Ben Sphinx Super Melt at Betty's Grill in Nashville, Tennessee, October 13th, 2014. And then a couple of other bands from that very same night. God damn. Okay, here's another real brain teaser. We know that people out there have heard of the Nova Mob. Has anybody out there ever heard of Peter Stubb? Has anybody out there ever heard of Super Melt? Once again, I'm going to wait for just a second here. I want to see, and I want, even if it's no, comment no. If it's yes, comment yes. But I want to see actual participation, either a yes or a no. Have you heard of Peter Stubb, or have you heard of Supermelt? Because this is important. This is important for the storytelling. Let's just kick back a second and wait for some yeses and or nos to start showing up. There's always a delay. There's always a several second delay between when I speak and when you guys see and hear. So I need some yeses and I need some nos. Have you ever heard of Supermelt, or have you ever heard of Peter Stubb? Okay, we got a couple of no's, got a couple of no's. All right, we got some no's here. Yep, lots of no's. Thus, my friends, proving my point. Nobody's ever heard of these people. That's why it is critical that they be documented. Peter Stubb is this dude from Dalton, Georgia. And my friend Josh Mayfield, who owned a record store in Chattanooga, booked me on a bill with him. And right off the bat, everybody from Chattanooga was like, "You're playing with Peter Stubb? God damn, I'm going to be there. This is going to be awesome." There's this huge buzz about me sharing the bill with Peter Stubb. Didn't know anything about the guy. Knew nothing about him. So I get to the venue, and there had been a lot of drama prior to this. "Oh, Peter's not playing." "Yes, he is." "No, he isn't." "Yes, he is." "Peter, he's not feeling it. He's not going to play." "No, he's playing." Like, up until the minute I arrived at the venue, I didn't know if this guy Peter Stubb was going to play or not, but I knew that everybody really wanted him to play. So it's pretty intriguing. So I get there, and, I show up, and, Chattanooga, it's a good town for me. I love playing Chattanooga, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's some wild-ass people in Chattanooga. The whole Wang crowd, that's Wang, W-A-N-G, that's wild-ass North Georgians and Southern Tennesseans. All those wild people come out to the shows. So I arrive at the venue, and all the wild-ass North Georgians are there, and the party has begun. And there's this one dude in particular walking around. He's got a tie-dye t-shirt, overalls, a bandana on his head, a hot dog tattooed on his face, and a couple other things tattooed on his face, and masses and masses of scar tissue on his arm for where he was cutting himself. I was like, wow, I knew they were wild around here, but that's something else. So, show begins. Play my set. Yeah. Ooh, baby. Cool, no problem. And it's time for Peter Stubb to get on stage. And everybody's like, "Oh, where's Peter? Where's Peter?" And in through the front door walks the guy with the overalls and the tie-dye and the hot dog on his face and the massive cutting scars. And I guess is that Peter? I don't know. So Peter, this dude sits down. He's got a homemade music stand made out of 2x4s. And he has all of his songs on this music stand and an electric guitar. And he sits on a sofa, because this is the first ever show. It was at a living. It was a house show. And he sits on the sofa in the living room, and he plugs in his guitar, and he sits there staring at the music stand, and without any warning just starts to play. Just starts playing. And I was like, oh shit, he's on. That's Peter Stubb. He's on. So I go there and like immediately start recording. And he's playing. And the whole time he's playing and singing, I'm thinking to myself, Malcolm Tent, you should just give up right now. Just stop. Just quit. Go home now. Don't even do the rest of the tour. Because this guy is blowing you away. This Peter Stubb is astounding. It was just like one song after another of pure fucking brilliance. This dude singing all these songs he wrote about what it's like to be completely nuts. Like certifiably nuts. unabashedly, unashamedly, right there on the table. They took my sanity away from me, and here's a song about it. It was so good. So good. His songs were so good. And he never took his eyes off the stand. He didn't talk to the audience. And when he was done, he just stopped playing and stood up and left. I felt like I'd just been hit in the face with a wet towel. Could not believe it. Turns out that Peter Stubb has recorded, who even knows, dozens and dozens and dozens of cassette releases. Dozens of them. But nobody outside of the Chattanooga area really knows about it. You know, he has had some stuff come out on labels, but nobody knows about it. If I hadn't been there to record, I never would have been able to document this. I was blown away. Afterwards, I said, Peter Stubb, that was awesome. I would love to release something by you on my label sometime. He was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't care. I was like, wow, fantastic. Okay, so I had the cassette. At this time, see, this is where the details get a little bit fuzzy, but I'm remembering now, at this time, I was still recording stuff on cassette. For whatever reason, I don't remember. I think I had a Tascam 4-track. So I was dragging that thing around. I recorded the Peter Stubb set on cassette, played a gig in Asheville, North Carolina the next night at a place called the Murder Basement. It was a basement show. So we set up the gig in Asheville. It's me and some other punk rock bands. This is Asheville, North Carolina, you know, lefty liberal central. No problem with that. That's just the way it is over there. So we're playing the gig, and in the middle of one of the band's sets, these three dudes show up. And they're Nazis. Like, full-blown, Sieg Heiling, Hitler had the right idea, Nazis. And they arrive at this basement show to start trouble. Why? I don't know. I guess that shows you the relative intelligence of your average Asheville Nazi. So a great big ruckus ensued. The kids in Asheville, I will give them full credit. They took care of business real fast. They got those guys out of there. And it was a big melee, and shit got knocked over, including my recording stuff, and my bag got spilled. And show resumes. I get home, you know, a couple days later or whatever, and I'm going through my tapes, and oh my God, the Peter Stubb tape from Chattanooga is missing. It's gone. It's just not there. What happened? And I remembered the big melee in Asheville the next night. I was like, oh man, my bag's spilled. I bet the tape is still there. So I called the promoter. I said, dude, did you see a cassette? No, I didn't see any cassette. I asked the bands who were on the bill, did any of you guys see a cassette laying around in the basement after you guys chucked out the Nazis? No, I didn't see any cassette laying around. I'm like, God, that brilliant Peter Stubb performance is gone. What the hell happened? I was crestfallen because he was so good. Fast forward a year, 1 year later, almost to the very day, 1 year later, I've repeated the same route. I played Chattanooga one night, Asheville the next. Recorded Peter Stubb, who was, again, sheer genius. So I'm like, okay, I at least got one Peter Stubb set documented, and I'm going to make sure that this one doesn't get lost. So it was very, very precious with that one. The next night played Asheville, another indie show, and I was talking to somebody, and they said, hey, you know, I think I got something that belongs to you. I said, wouldn't be a cassette, would it? I said, yeah, is this yours? Boom. The cassette that got lost the year before when the Nazis showed up. The kid said, yeah, I was helping cleaning up the basement, and I saw this, and I thought it must belong to somebody, but nobody knew who it was. I thought maybe it was yours. Thank you. That was Eric Zwenskis. That's the name of the Good Samaritan who returned my tape a year later, against all odds, when he certainly didn't have to, but he did. Eric Zwinskis, originally from Connecticut, the drummer on the first BB Gun demo, my band, and a good egg. Thank you, Eric. He returned the cassette. I asked Peter Stubb if it was okay to release it. He said yes. There it is, kids. Peter Stubb. Wild Ass North Georgian cassette on my label, TPOS. Look it up. Look me up. Hit me up. You people need Peter Stubb in your life, especially considering the blood I had to sweat to actually get the recordings to put this thing together. Released with his permission, with his sanction, recorded by me. Goddamn brilliance. Brilliance. Along with some of these other bands I've recorded over the years. Everybody from Nelson Slater to my bands Ultrabunny and the Bunny Brains, the almighty Antiseen, the Pissed, the Great Apps, all available on TPOS, recorded by me. Just saying. And the last story of today's episode of 10 Talks Tunes, Ben Spink. I never knew if it was Ben Spink, Ben Spinks, Ben Sphinx, Supermelt. Don't know, but Supermelt, I guess, is the name of the band. The venue was Betty's Grill in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was a Monday night, pissing down rain. It was like a monsoon outside. It was buckets of rain. Lightning, tornado warnings, the works. Horrible night to go out. I didn't even want to go out, and I'm die hard. Whatever, the show must go on. Get to this place. People actually showed up. I guess they're used to that kind of thing in Nashville. I don't know. But people showed up, pretty good crowd, played my set. Went back into the men's room where I do most of my changing in and out of my stage gear. And I heard the next band starting, Supermelt. And I heard this like kind of really long, slow song playing. And I was like, it doesn't sound that great. So I took my sweet time getting back into my civvies and, emptied out the tip cup, see if I made any money that night and whatever. Amble on back out to the room. And they're still playing this long, slow song, and it's not really going anywhere, and I'm not really into it. I'm just kind of ready to go home, I was actually going to drive to Charlotte that night for the next gig. It was still monsooning outside, just beastly weather. I just wanted to get going, I just didn't want to delay my departure because the weather was so bad. And it was a very long drive from Nashville to Charlotte. So it's like, okay, guys, we just wrap it up, please. I got to get out of here. So they finished the song. Song's over. They take their time. They're like tuning up and rapping to the crowd just a little bit. And I'm like, this is going to go on forever. I'm not getting out of here. I'm going to die. Probably by drowning because the highways are all washed out. And I'm going to get to Charlotte at 5 o'clock in the morning. I just want to go. And their songs are dragging. And the guitar player starts strumming this little riff. I'm like, okay, thank God for the second song. They're finally getting on with it. Strums a couple of chords. Drummer goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And then all of a sudden it was just like, boom! Like someone started a jet engine and aimed it at my face. And I went, wow! And for the next 30 or so minutes, I found myself pinned to the back wall of Betty's Grill in Nashville, Tennessee, on a rainy Monday night by this band Supermelt, who, as far as I know, have never recorded anything, never put anything out, never played outside of Nashville. I was pinned to the wall. by the furious onslaught of pure sonic joy that they uncorked that night. When they stopped playing, I didn't want them to stop. I wanted them to go all night. Thank Jah Rastafari, I was recording that night. When we finally got out of there, and I hopped in the tent mobile to take that long drive to Charlotte in the monsoon, I had a soundtrack to listen to. I cranked that mother as loud as I possibly could and grabbed the wheel with both hands and navigated the treacherous twists and turns of Interstate 40 through the gorge. If y'all know what the gorge is on Interstate 40 going between North Carolina and Tennessee, the gorge in a monsoon with super melt blasting on my car stereo. Wow. It was amazing. And I actually ran into the dude from Super Melt a couple of years later when the Antiseen played Nashville. I said, man, have you guys ever recorded anything? He said, yeah, well, we're thinking about it. Oy vey, please. Just do it. Do it, Super Melt. Record something. I'm begging you. But in the event that you don't, I got this. I got this. And that's why I've spent so much time lugging these things around and lugging these things around and bags of microphones and cables and having my stuff knocked over by a bunch of goddamn Nazis and blood, toil, tears, and sweat, because this is magic. This is alchemy. This has to be preserved. And I view it as my mission to do so, and my mission to share it with all of you out there, my frantic fans and loyal listeners. So thank you for tuning in every week to Tent Talks Tunes and listening to my stories and checking me out on Discogs and eBay and buying my stuff. Even if you don't, thanks for looking. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I'm good, as you know already. And it is my full intention to be back in 167 hours' time. So till we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.